Now to tonight's guest, the former Treasurer, Peter Costello, joined me from our Parliament House studio earlier this evening. Peter Costello, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, Tony.
Now, you've seen the government's latest stimulus package. Had you been in government now, facing the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, what would you have done differently?
Well, this is poor quality spend. We had a $10 billion spend before Christmas, you'll recall. That was poor quality. I'm not saying that pensioners and families didn't recognise it and weren't glad to have it, but it was poor quality. It's been and gone. And essentially what the government is trying to do is it's trying to massage the figures quarter by quarter. So it tried to massage the December retail figures with $10 billion. It's now trying to massage the March quarter figures. It's poor quality spend. A lot of this will just come and go. The $10 billion come and gone. Did you notice a shift in the economy? No, of course not.
Well, according to Westfield, they noticed a jump in their retail figures at a time when you certainly wouldn't expect it. So they're suggesting evidently that there was some sort of stimulus boost to spending.
But the purpose of people paying taxes is not to boost Westfield profits. These people's taxes, yes, and they may well have given a 2% lift in Westfield sales. But that's not why people pay taxes, Tony. People pay taxes.
No, but that's why the government.
That's why the
government puts a stimulus package together to get people spending in retail stores. Westfield's one of the biggest. That's the point.
Well, no, much better quality spend is where you actually lift production, where new jobs are created. I mean, I'm sure if I was Westfield, I'd be very grateful for the fact that my profits or my sales have gone up 2%. But are they long-term permanent jobs, long-term investment that's going to last for 10 years? This is $10 billion, Tony. If the purpose is to boost Westfield sales, you might as well have taken a couple of billion and paid it across direct.
So what would you have done had you been in government to stimulate jobs growth and all of those kind of things that you've just mentioned?
Well, you know what I think one of the biggest failures of this government has been it's far from adding to confidence. I think this government has probably undermined confidence in the economy. What I would have been talking up, which the government apparently is afraid to do, was how strong the Australian position was. We had a $20 billion surplus. We had no net debt. We had a good regulatory system. We had the lowest unemployment in 30 years. I would have been saying, by the way, last year that we should be going for growth when the government was saying we should be restricting spending and raising interest rates. Now, Tony, let's just go back. Let's go back 12 months. 12 months ago, you know what Kevin Rudd was saying? He was saying the inflation genie was out of the bottle, we needed interest rate rises, and we needed larger surpluses. That was 12 months ago. He was wrong throughout 2008. He was actually urging on a restrictive monetary and fiscal policy when what we should have been doing last year is we should have been ensuring that we had pro-growth policies. Okay, he's turned around. He's done a U-turn. He's done the biggest U-turn in Australian economic history.
Well, Malcolm Turnbull is calling this U-turn. Malcolm Turnbull is calling this U-turn, as you referred to it, indeed today's fiscal stimulus package, Whitlam-esque in its dimensions. Do you agree with that?
Oh yes. Look, get this in your mind, Tony. I think the commentators should be very cruel about this tomorrow. The budget will go from a $20 billion surplus to a deficit, not because revenues have fallen. This deficit is driven by policy decisions. $28 billion of policy decisions. Let's be clear about this. What the government is saying is in this financial year, our revenues are going to drop about $9 billion. So it is not going to go from a surplus into deficit because of dropping revenues. It is going to go from a surplus into a deficit because Kevin Rudd decided to put out $10 billion before Christmas. He's going to insulate homes. He's going to do all sorts of things. And it's a low-quality spend.
OK, but would you have spent money? Would you have gone deliberately into deficit to try buy the government out of a recession, or buy the country out of a recession?
No, I would not go deliberately into deficit. In fact, even Kevin Rudd says he didn't go deliberately into deficit. As I've just pointed out to you, it's his policy decisions that did it. He's claiming that he was forced into it because revenues dropped. It's false. It wasn't the revenues, it was the policy decision. Now, I'll make this point. In this year, 2008-9, we'll be back in the business of borrowing. The government is now saying that our debt to GDP will be about 5%, I think, 2010, probably about $60 billion worth of debt. Let me tell you, Tony, I mean, Keating was talking about temporary deficits in 1991-92. They lasted through 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, and it was only when we were elected as the coalition that we got out of a deficit. Now, let me tell you, deficits are very easy to get into. You can call them temporary if you like, but it takes a lot of action to get out of it. And I'll be very, very interested to see whether this government ever delivers on the promise now, which is easy to make, that one day we'll get out of it. Bear in mind it was making promises that we would never go into it. I'll be very interested to see.
Let me I'll just pick you up on one thing, because you're not, and you weren't in government, philosophically opposed to cash payments to low-income people, were you?
No. We did pensioner bonuses, for example.
Well, you did. Not only that, I mean, in advance of the 2004 election, at some risk of being accused of trying to buy votes, I might add, your government spent $2.2 billion making cash payments of $1,200 to 2 million households. So cash payments are something you've used in government yourself.
No. As I said to you, I mean, we were the first government to make cash bonuses to carers and pensioners. In fact, the first time we did it was as part of the offset for the GST, right? It was to compensate people for the introduction of GST. What we bought with it was a long-term economic reform, the GST, which is going to last, 50, 60, 100 years? I don't know how long it will last.
That wasn't in 2004. So, I mean, some might argue what you bought in 2004 was a whole lot of voters.
Oh, yeah, in 2004, Tony, people were critical of the coalition for making payments when the budget was, in surplus by, 2% of GDP? As I recall, the economic commentators were saying in 2004, I mean, only 2% surpluses.
Yes.
Tony, get this in your mind. This government is now 2% deficit. Not 2% surplus, 2% deficit.
Okay, well, so this is, we can see the ideological ground that's now appearing, of course, on the other side of the ideological equation. You've got this monthly essay by Kevin Rudd on the global financial crisis. Mr Turnbull's calling this essay Orwellian. Mr Rudd blames the crisis on extreme capitalism, what he calls the economic fundamentalism of neoliberalism. The thrust of this ideological argument is to put the Liberal Party firmly in the camp of the economic extremists. So let's start with that. Do you accept any of the blame, philosophical blame for the financial crisis?
Well, let's ask what has happened in Australia. Has there been a bank collapse? Let's ask, has there been a run on a bank in Australia? Tony, you know, the funny thing about Kevin Rudd is he's out writing this speech about how it's all the fault of... He puts the word neo in, but he really wants to emphasise that word liberal. It's all the fault of liberals. We had Julia Gillard off at Davos giving a speech simultaneously. Here's what she said. Australia has a AAA foreign currency rating. By the way, it didn't have a AAA foreign currency rating before I became Treasurer. It had been downgraded twice. We got it regraded up twice. She then goes on to say, we've opened competitive markets backed up by world-class financial, prudential, regulatory system. Given the flaws exposed by the global financial crisis, I would say our system is even better than world-class. Now, on the weekend, Julia Gillard is off in Davos saying, our system's the best in the world. Our banks are among the 11 highest credit-rated banks in the world. Our government has a AAA credit rating, right? Now, this is the regulatory system which I put in place, APRA, that regulatory system. Julia Gillard is extolling it to the world as the best in the world. Back here in Australia, have this miserable little essay from Kevin Rudd saying the whole global financial crisis is somehow the fault of the Liberal Party. I got to say to you, every now and then someone makes a claim in